splendid. Now, from time to time on my channel, I do a video where I discuss some moderately rare or semi-obscure vinyls that I buy. And the fun of the episodes are just showing off these, most of these albums I get are from way back in the 80s, so I like to see what condition they're in, talk a little bit about, music bands that I love. Well, a few days back, October 20th, 2020, Tony Lewis, who was the lead singer of the band The Outfield, passed away at 62 years of age. Another member of their band passed away at the age of 60 back in 2014. Their main guitarist, or I think, yeah, their lead guitarist, and one of their guy that wrote most of their songs, John Spinks, died. So they were only a three-part band, and two of the members are now dead. And Tony Lewis was, he had that iconic singing voice, in an era where, a lot of people tried sounding like other people. He sounded entirely himself. If you don't really know much about The Outfield, they're another one of those 80s bands that are regarded by many who just don't really know music from the 80s as a one-hit wonder. A lot of bands are kind of mistakenly identified as one-hit wonders. Bands like Simple Minds, a lot of people think that Don't You Forget About Me is like the only successful song they ever had, which is absolutely not true. The Outfield is kind of similar. A lot of people think they're only known for one song they did on their first album, Play Deep, which was called Your Love. The song that iconically started with the lines, "Josie's on a vacation far away." So hearing me say the line, you can probably hear Tony Lewis screaming the lyrics out. And, they were just another 80s band that, that was like the only song I knew that they did for a long time. And, I'd go through spurts where I'd want to discover new music. And so I'd find these bands from the 80s that I'd heard of, because I already loved 80s music. And I'd be like, oh, well, this is a band that I've only heard, like, there are a couple of famous songs. So, maybe I need to give a try and listen to some of their other stuff. So, like a lot of other bands, that's what I did with the band The Outfield. And I ended up discovering that I really loved them. Whether a song they did was a single or not, whether it charted or not, didn't really play too much of a role. I loved most of what they did. And they did 5 albums before going on a brief hiatus and then reuniting, and they did a couple more albums between like 1998 and 2011-ish. But, yeah, they did Play Deep, was their first album in 85. They actually had a couple charting songs off there. And they did another album in 87. They did Visions of Babylon in 1989. And then they did Rock Eye in 1992. And then went on a brief hiatus, but that was their main heyday, was that, period like 1985 to 1992, where they were at their peak popularity, and they had more than one successful song. They had, did a song called Say It Isn't So. They did a song called All the Love, Since You've Been Gone, Visions of Babylon, My Paradise. They did a song called Winning It All that was used at the end of the NBA Finals from like 1992 to 1995. So they were more than just one performer, but more importantly, they were more than just one song. And I've been trying to get vinyls from them, but they don't come cheap, and I can't really afford to spend a lot of money. I can't afford to spend, $15, $20 on one vinyl. And when I heard about the death of Tony Lewis, I knew I had to at least find one LP of theirs and buy it. And fortunately, my favorite Outfield album is also the one that, not by much, but is usually the easiest to afford. And I ended up kind of breaking my rule. I dropped like 17, 18 bucks on this because of the circumstances with Tony Lewis's passing. I just had to make an exception in this case and get at least one album from them. And that favorite album of mine, personally, is their 1987 album, Bangin'. And this is still sealed, and it's like in great condition. Is this... It only says 1987, so I think this is an original 1987 release. This isn't a re-release of this album. Because I feel like their stuff was just popular enough that it could get re-released. But I think this is an original 1987 release. And if you look at the plastic, I mean, look at that sheen. There's, you know, I mean, I'm going to finally destroy this sheen, but this plastic would eventually get too tight and rip itself anyway. Yeah, it says Outfield, the Bangin' new rock and roll LP. Well, 87 is not new anymore. References tracks like Since You've Been Gone, which is probably my favorite song on the album. It's a tight race, and there's No Surrender. Moving Target, which I think is one of their most underrated songs, and Main Attraction. It's interesting that they reference Main Attraction, because I think that was probably one of their most mediocre songs of that time period, and I don't even think it was really maybe it was a single, and that's why they're promoting it. But they had Somewhere in America is the song that starts things off, and that ended up being somewhat popular. Bangin' on My Heart, which is where the bangin' comes from. But yeah, Long Way Home, Playground, Alone With You, which is another great song. Main Attraction, Better Than Nothing, Since You've Been Gone. Yeah, this album contains two of what I think are some of their most underrated songs, which are, first things first, if I can find it, Moving Target and Playground. I feel like are two extremely underappreciated Outfield songs. Maybe not by their specific fan base, but I mean, in general music, that's my perspective. I hate to, you know, it's got the original sticker on it, but I buy these to listen to them. I don't buy them to save up and sell again someday, or so I can brag. That's you know, it's 2050, and I'm just old as all hell, and I'm like, look at that. Now there's an unwrapped 87 Bangin' by the Outfield. You know the Outfield? I don't know why I would suddenly develop a southern-ish accent, but gently, because I don't want to damage the... But yeah, I felt I had to do this. I really wanted to get Play Deep as well, but you really couldn't find a copy of Play Deep for like, even on like eBay, it was around 30 bucks. And I actually found a Play Deep for like $5, and then I put my information in and it said the shipping would be like 36 bucks. And I was like, well, that's why I'm getting it so cheap. If you ever find something and it's the same price all around, and all of a sudden you find one that's like only like 20% the price of the others, odds are it's because the shipping is monumental. Okay. So yeah, so this should be in just immaculate condition, considering even the wrapping on it is immaculate. Yeah, there's a few folds in the cardboard, but that's probably because it's mostly just up here. That's probably because this plastic has been crushing down on it for years. But yeah, I love it when you can get one, when you know it's original, when they've got the sticker on there. But yeah, that's what I got to wake up to a few days back, was I woke up, put YouTube on to kind of wake me up, and then I saw a video saying, like, you know, tribute to Tony Lewis, or rest in peace Tony Lewis, something like that. And I was like, no. And then I looked it up, and sure enough, he had died. I haven't checked for updates. They said that it was kind of unknown what he died of at the time. But yeah, here's the Outfield. They actually have the members of the band. So Alan Jackman, their drummer, I think is the only guy who's still alive. But there's John Spinks, who I always felt looked like he could be like, he could have found work as a like a bouncer or something in like a Miami Vice type show. He was, you know, one of their main songwriters, guitarist. He died back in 2014 of cancer at the age of 60. And then Tony Lewis, who just, you know, died a few days ago at the age of 60. And then cool, they've got I always love it when they make sure to include the lyrics. You know, even though I know the lyrics to most of these songs, it's just, this is always an added. I love it when albums include their lyrics, and I always think it's really dumb when they don't. let's see what this LP is looking like. Even like usually this will be damaged. The edges of these will be damaged to some degree by the album. So this has probably been kept like in one spot and not moved for like over 30 years. Oh man, we got the old, the 1980s, the old red and gold Columbia album look. So yeah, there's side one. Flip it around. Side two for you. And it's, yeah, it's immaculate. I mean, look at the light reflection. It is immaculate on both sides. And I always notice there's random, maybe you know why this happens. These albums will have etchings into them, and I don't know what they mean, but especially albums from the 80s. Like, what is it? It says Car Park of the Stars. It says it right there. I don't know if you can read it, but it says it. Try to get some light on it. Yeah, down at the bottom. Yeah, right there. It says Car Park of the Stars. It's not really showing up that well. So I'm like, what does that mean? And then on the other side, it says a willy into a cup of tea, which I don't want to tell you what that makes me think of, considering what willy means in like Britain. But yeah, see, and there's the etchings down there at the bottom. Willy into a, like, what? And like, I have multiple LPs that are original from like the 80s, and they'll have those random etchings, and I've always wondered what those mean. But yeah, I'm really glad to finally have an Outfield album, and I may have taken forever to finally drop the money and at least buy Bangin, which is my favorite album, and definitely, I think a lot of people probably, if you ask the average Outfield fan, their favorite album is probably Play Deep, their first one. But you got to admit that this is right up there. I definitely think this was their peak. Not to take anything away from their later works, because I liked plenty of the stuff that they did after this. I just feel like this was their best work, was this, and this was only their second album. And I think being a band that had new wave elements that didn't come around till, that didn't get their first album out till 1985, it didn't really start getting popularity till 85, 86, I think they may have been they were unfortunately a little late to the big new wave craze, and that may have affected their popularity. But yeah, this is at least one of like my top 20 favorite 80s albums, and again, definitely my favorite Outfield album, and I had to buy it in commemoration of these recent events, and hey, maybe even for John, who died several years ago. You know, maybe it's for both of you guys. I've really wanted to buy something from the Outfield, and I finally had a reason to kick myself in the butt and just don't worry about spending a few extra bucks. Just go do it. Tony Lewis is telling you to do this right now. So anyway, that's it. This just showed up, so I knew, considering I usually do videos about obscure vinyls, and this isn't really an obscure one, so it's kind of a video unto itself, but it is in relation to a recent event that happened, so I figured I kind of wanted to open this and share that, and share my thoughts and feelings in a video as I was opening this up and looking this over, and it's beautiful. It's in fantastic condition. I'm sure it'll play really great. So anyway, I'm gonna go do that now, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon if you want to help me out that way, and until next time, this has been Steve, the Amateur Historian.